Hey there, everyone. So today we're going to get into some revolutions and reforms in the 1830s in Europe, and in the circles you have some of the places in which you would see rebellions because, we have this liberalism, we have this socialism, we have people that are tired of getting downtrodden, and, we get some stuff that goes on. All right, the French Revolution of 1830. Okay, Charles the 10th. You see him on the left. He is delightfully fantastical. He passes the July Ordinances in 1830, in which you have rigid censorship of the press. The legislature is actually dissolved, so none of that nonsense anymore. He actually reduces the electorate of people who could vote. I don't even know what they're voting for. And his goal was to create a new legislature that was basically subservient to the king, that was voted on for like 10 people. As a result, you have the July Revolution, made famous, of course, by the painting of Liberty Leading the People by Eugene Delacroix. My favorite is like the kid with like the messenger bag and two pistols over here. Like, watch out. But what's interesting, you see, like, this guy's, got a regular hat, and like it's a revolution of people. They actually had to barrage Paris in order to protect it. And it was crazy. And what ends up happening is that in order to stop the revolution, a group of moderate liberals who actually happen to own property went to Charles's cousin, Louis Philippe, and was like, hey, if we can push Charles out of power, would you take power? And Louis Philippe's like, yeah, that sounds cool. And that was pretty much the end of it. By the end of July, Charles the 10th steps down, and his cousin, Louis Philippe, becomes the king. And here is King Louis Philippe on the right. And again, the most important thing that you need to know about Louis Philippe is that he wore pants. No crazy robes, none of that stuff. We've got pants. Now, he is known as the bourgeoisie monarch because the upper middle class basically was his biggest supporter, and he dresses the part. He doesn't wear robes. Again, he wears pants and suits and a regular type hat. And he's really going to do big changes for business here, okay? He is going to reduce financial qualifications for voting, which will actually double the electorate. Now, sadly, that's only about 200,000 people, but it still has more people voting. So we're starting to get a little bit closer to helping some people out. Now, he is going to have some issues. Again, the lower classes, they don't technically have representation, and they have issues with work, of course, because those really rough conditions that I've talked about in past videos do still persist. And the economy in general is very volatile with all of the ups and downs since the French Revolution. You get riots every now and again, and then you've got food issues. And as a result of all of this stuff, you actually will see a party system develop in France. This is going to be important for later on. Okay, and you have the Party of the Movement, who is led by Adolphe Thiers, and he is all about ministerial responsibility. He wants to be active in foreign affairs, and he really wants to expand the right to vote. And that's what his party is going to be all about. And of course, now we get some pictures of people. Look at that, photographs. The Party of the Resistance, once led by Princess Leia, but of course, after the last movie, there's not so many people left, so I don't even know if she's going to be in charge. But eventually, it went over to Francois Guzot. And he is more conservative. The government is perfect. We do not need to change it. And because of actually the July Revolution and some of the craziness and the stuff with Napoleon, the Party of Resistance is going to win out for now. Okay, and there is still going to be the Chamber of Peers and the Chamber of Deputies. We don't really have a constitutional monarchy at this point. But the Party of the Movement is not going away. And so the Revolution of 1830 was like mildly successful. It got rid of a king who was really trying to get rid of the Napoleonic Code. So they get rid of him, but we're still not seeing the big movement that we want. And Adolphe Thiers is going to come back, or Thiers, I don't know. The Netherlands is going to have some revolts in 1830 as well, and actually, it is going to take place about in the Austrian Netherlands. Now, the Austrian Netherlands was given to the Netherlands as part of the settlement after the Napoleonic Wars. The problem is the people that lived there weren't Austrian, weren't Dutch, they were Belgian. And what was most important about those folks is that they were Catholic, and they don't particularly like being part of Protestant Netherlands. And in 1830, they are going to revolt as a relatively small one, and they're going to win. And a man by the name of Leopold of Saxe-Coburg will become King Leopold I, and they are going to establish a constitutional monarchy in the country of now Belgium. So, okay, we have one thing in France that like kind of works, one thing in Belgium that will work in 1830. And so cool. So Belgium wins, and now like Italy and Poland, who have been dominated by the Russians and the Austrians and the French, are like, okay, it's our turn, let's go. And no, they actually brutally fail. There are revolts in both Italy and Poland. In Italy, they are annihilated by Austria with a little bit of Prussia, and Russia will come in and just annihilate the Poles. So, sorry. But last but not least, we do have some reforms on the other hand. In Britain, they are looking at this craziness going on, and remember, they're not going to be part of intervention, so they're trying to think of a way that we can prevent the craziness from happening in their country. So they're going to pass a couple different laws that are like, okay, and meh, but we're getting there. First is the Reform Act of 1832. Basically, this was trying to deal with areas that had rigged voting and voting, and so taking away voting in areas in which they were horribly corrupt. And then they were also trying to deal with issues that, you have these growing areas I talked about Birmingham and Manchester, that don't have good representation. So this is what's going to happen. They're going to lower income requirements in order to vote, okay? And the electorate is actually going to be double. Now, the negative with that, I'm going to kind of go back and forth with good and bad. So that's good. The bad is only about 1 in every 30 people can vote. So we still don't have mass election. It's not universal male suffrage. But the benefit is that many of the new voters were in the industrial middle class. So they are starting to get a voice. Back to bad is the makeup of the government wasn't necessarily going to change, but the people in the government were going to have to pay attention to this industrial middle class because now some of them can vote. So it's not a perfect law, but the idea is that we have an expanded electorate, and some of that industrial middle class is finally going to get some representation. So that's good. Then there's the Poor Law of 1834. This is kind of basically what this meant is that if you don't have a house or a job, you had to live in a workhouse. And in some of my Industrial Revolution videos, you'll look to see that that was pretty terrible. It was communal living. It was crappy conditions. And the idea behind it was to make things so bad that it would force people to work harder to get jobs. And inherently, it's supposed to be kind of a good thing, and that will give you some temporary housing, and you're going to work hard, and you're going to get a job, and that it doesn't really work. Now, one of the other issues that I talked about on previous issue were the Corn Laws, which were laws that were basically designed to protect really the upper class and the landing and the elites. They are going to repeal the Corn Laws, which actually will help commoners because bread prices drop. And it's going to help manufacturers because it enforces the ideas of free trade, which is actually going to help them get raw goods a little bit better. And so Britain is going to be able to avoid some of these revolutions that were being inspired by still leftover Enlightenment ideals and the Americans and the Latin American revolutions. So in 1830, we get a little burst. The conservatives, as I said before, are going to try to clamp down. But then in 1848, in my next video, we're going to see a lot more stuff coming. All right, guys, so make sure you get your notes and stuff, and I will see you soon.